Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz Interview Series with jazz multi-instrumentalist Jeff Weinmann. This drummer and singer was born in Houston, Texas, and raised in Berkley, California. These days, he's promoting his 2017 album, Alma Matters. He started out on the drums at 13 in the renowned Cadillac Kids, and he went on to get a degree in vocal performance from the New England Conservatory and was studying with the legendary jazz drummer Alan Dawson. These days, he is a member of the Last World Ensemble, and he has so much to say and offer. So get to know him and dig this interview, my friends.
Jeff, thank you for taking a minute out for me.
Sure.
Let's go ahead and start off here. And before we get to Alma Matters, give me an idea of, along with this album, what's going on with you as far as activity lately?
Well, we just had our CD release concert 2 weeks ago, and it went really well. And we had a lot of great special guests who joined us, including Eddie Minifield, who used to play with, who is part of Sheila E.'s band, and really was excited about it, and I'm hoping we can work with him some more. I'm going to try to get a smaller, more nimble group, because we had as many as 16 people on stage. And it was exciting and powerful and awesome, but the logistics around that, you can just imagine, are challenging. So we're going to shoot for some festivals that are going to be able to accommodate such a large group and do some things locally with a smaller subset. The record really was a studio creation. A lot of it was some overdubs that Peter Applebaum did and Jeff Cressman. This was our first live version, so I'm excited about revamping the material for a smaller ensemble and writing some new material.
So talk to me about this album. It seems to me as though by the sound of it, there's such a good sound to this album that you have to be happy with the results of it. Talk to me about how you feel about it.
Ecstatic about the sound of this record. Jeff Cressman is a wizard in the studio, and the way we were able to take tracks that had different instrumentation, we even had some that were recorded in Brooklyn, and he was able to unify the sound and really mix it in a way that I believe gives it a real unified sound. And it's just amazing what Jeff can do in the studio. I had pretty good help. Peter Applebaum and the Cressman family are a formidable team.
Right on. Yeah, for the novice that doesn't understand how to mix audio, that's a pretty towering feat to take two separate sessions and mix them into something that sounds unified. Where were you born and raised?
I was actually born in Houston, Texas, but only spent 1 year there. I was raised in Berkley, California. The name of the group it's because the music that I was exposed to and experienced coming through the Berkley schools had a profound effect on me, and my bandmates are people I knew since I was really young. Peter Applebaum, he was my neighbor. I heard him play drums when he was 6 and I was 5. And Jeff Cressman was in my 6th grade class.
So what was it about getting on the drums at 13 that really moved you? Was it to get the angst out? Was it the instrument choice?
That's a great question. I definitely had some of that, that's for sure. Yeah, and I have to admit that performing, I got together with some friends of mine from my math class, and we formed a rock group that could play one song for this talent show, and it was a huge success. And so I have to admit that the getting the reaction from the crowd kind of helped me want to continue.
So speaking of education, you obviously continue that. You talked about Berkley, but also you have the New England Conservatory. You studied with Alan Dawson. What did you learn in a formal environment about music? What was so key to higher education to help you in your career?
The interesting thing about that is as you mentioned, I started out on drums, but I was doing background vocals in that band, and I had one lead vocal, and people responded really positively, and I decided to pursue singing more, and I wanted to go to school so I could learn more about harmony and just the totality of music, not just the rhythm aspect as a drummer. And so I was actually a voice major, and I was actually a classical music voice major.
Well, and what I was going to branch out and ask you, too, is that you've obviously had a really good pulse on kind of the international flavor of things. You know, you've recorded with a Brazilian singer, South African group. Is that very key to you as a musician to kind of get that worldly feel into what you're doing?
It's not so calculated. It was kind of organic. I met people in social settings and friends of friends, and I guess it comes from just exposure and having access to people from other cultures who were in the mix and hanging and decided they wanted to collaborate. It's been quite an adventure. There have been several times where I was the only person not speaking Portuguese with a bunch of Brazilians around, and I just soaked it up as much as I could in a informal way. And the South African group, we had two South African singer-songwriters, and the rest of us were from the area here, and we kind of just created our own sound. We weren't trying to recreate traditional South African music per se, but we certainly were listening to the songs that were presented to us and collaborating. So I didn't really have a plan to do this kind of music and then that. It kind of just is a circuitous path, and I'm hoping it will coalesce into a sound that's just my own. And so I'm excited about this next project. I mean, the next album that we put out, I'm going to be writing a lot more and performing more.
So let me ask you this. You know, you've been performing your whole life. Were you nervous in the beginning, or is the stage kind of a natural extension of who you are?
I tell you, that first performance, it's kind of a funny story because this was in a gym, actually a cafeteria, big room, and this is Willard Junior High School in Berkley, California in the 70s, and every single person in the audience, I think, and on stage other than us was black. And our group was called the Cadillac Kids. And there were three of us, and not only were we all white, but we all had really blonde hair. And there was a curtain, and we're called the Cadillac Kids. So no one had any idea that there were about to be three blonde kids on that stage. So when the curtain opened, it was just the most raucous laughter. And I wanted to hide behind the drums and wished I could just disappear. But then we started the song, and by the time we got to the chorus, the crowd was singing along, and I was hooked. A little bit of nerves. I actually feel that if I don't have nerves, there's something wrong. I really always want to have, that just means I care about it that much, that there's an excitement. I just have to turn that nervous energy into enthusiasm.
There's good and bad stress, and you can take that stress and make it whatever you want it to be.
This is so true.
For sure. So, over the years, you've traveled, you've played in other places. What does traveling and playing in new cities mean to you?
Oh, it's so exciting to have a chance to play for people who have no idea. It's a challenge, and I just love meeting new people and having new experiences, and hope to do a lot more.
So your teacher, Alan Dawson, you learned under, and you've had other teachers in your life. Is there any advice that you got from a teacher that's really stuck with you, something that may pop into your head before you go into a recording studio or play live?
Well, for Alan Dawson, he really was a stickler about the mechanics, the rudiments of drumming, but then also the musicality. So I actually had to sing while I played, and that was really profound for me because I used to feel like there was a side of me that's a drummer and a side that's a singer, and I've come to the realization, partially through his great lessons, that they go together, and you really need to be aware of the tune and the form and the harmony, and then the music kind of just flows when you really have taken the time to know the song and all the elements of the song.
From someone that's in the world of drumming and singing, who has inspired you the most in the world of jazz, and as far as who you are and who you become as a musician?
Wow, that's a tough one. Well, I have to say one of the biggest inspirations is my partner, Peter Affelbaum, who has always been a multi-instrumentalist and always listened to and been influenced by different styles of music. So he sort of showed that it was possible from a very young age. So it's really been like a fulfillment of a dream of mine to collaborate with him, and I'm very excited about what's coming up in the future.
Of all the shows that you've seen live, what shows have moved you the most? Jazz musicians,
well, that
specifically.
I didn't even have to. Well, actually, there's two. Bob Marley, I was lucky enough to see him twice, and man, the power he had as a performer, and the message of the music, and the groove, and just the way it resonated with everyone, and still does to this day, is a testament to what a huge influence he is. And then the other is Stevie Wonder. I love both of them for, in addition to the music, that they have a social conscience that is at the heart of what it's what inspires them to write. And there's occasional love songs, but usually there's a message, and it's one that needs to be heard. You know, the arts are a huge part of the resistance to things that dehumanize us and separate people from each other. And we need to have vital arts that speak the truth. And I think that Bob Marley and Stevie Wonder exemplify that to the highest that I know.
Sometimes the good guys finish first, for sure. Let me ask you this. If you could get into a time machine, get into that immaculate DeLorean in front of the bell tower and go in history somewhere and type in the coordinates, date, time, and who you want to see, who would you see in the annals of jazz?
Oh, I'd have to go to Minton's and see Thelonious Monk and his crew.
That would be beautiful. Absolutely. I'd love to see that myself. Why do you love jazz?
I love jazz because of the freedom of expression and teamwork. You know, it's kind of like basketball in that everybody has their individual skills, and you have some plans, but in the moment there's no telling what could happen, and anyone on the team can step up and contribute. And it's, you know, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
Is there something a fan has said to you about your music, either after a CD's been released or after a show that's really stuck with you that was profound?
Nothing is sticking out for me right now that I remember. I'm actually fairly new to putting out CDs, so hopefully I'll hear some things from some fans really soon.
Let me kind of get to a little bit of the essence of who you are. Everyone has a version of you, your family, your friends, the business people around you, those that will buy your music. But when you wake up and face the world each day, who are you?
Wow. I'm someone who's grateful for life, grateful for the people around me, my family. I'm grateful to live in Oakland, so I'm a community member, someone who wants to strive to make the world better for those around me. And music is the vehicle I've chosen to do that as an educator for several decades, and now as a performer and composer and producer. So, but really, I'm just a guy who feels really blessed and glad to be here at this time in life, and just want to play my part.
So let's say we talk in 10 years from now. What do you? And I ask you right up front, like I did with this interview, what's going on lately? What are you going to want to tell me is going on? What do you want to see transpire?
I would like to see several more recordings that are well received, and tours, and I think my son will be graduating. Let's see, that will make him 20. So he'll be starting college and happy and challenging himself. And my wife and I will be sad that he's gone, but enjoying some of the freedom of not having to take him to all his practices and all those things. And really just a continuation of what's going on right now. I don't want to do anything else other than what I'm doing now. Just do it on a larger scale for more people.
That's a perfect way to wrap everything up. Jeff, thank you for taking some time out. Good luck with the album and everything that comes your way, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York, Kansas City, California, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Jeff for his time, his stories, and his music. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com. And for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.